He endured the horrors of Stalin's labor camp, survived an assassination attempt, cancer, 20 years in exile, persecution, but lived almost until he was 90.
If you look at his circumstances, you would see flashing red lights everywhere. Impossible to survive. But he fought the regime and won. One person defeated the entire system.
Solzhenitsyn was born in a small village in Russia in 1918, the same year that Bolsheviks murdered the last Russian Tsar. He fought for his country in World War II, but was sentenced to 8 years in a labor camp for criticizing Stalin in a personal letter to a friend. In prison he worked as a scientist, a miner and a bricklayer. But his mind was far away, creating and memorizing novels such as One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich and the Nobel-winning First Circle. After his Gulag Archipelago was published in the West, the Soviets accused him of treason and expelled him from Russia. His wife Natalia says Solzhenitsyn was surprised that all he faced was exile.
We always understood that at any moment he could have been killed in a set-up car crash or something like that. Such practices were quite common at that time. And actually there was an assassination attempt on him in 1971.
Rural Vermont in the United States became home for Solzhenitsyn, his wife and 3 sons. He spent up to 15 hours a day working, but he always found time for his children.
Our kids were still very little then. When they went to his classes, they would all gather at his study door, waiting, and they wouldn't even think to be 30 seconds late because they respected his time.
Solzhenitsyn was seen as a beacon of freedom in the West, but he never returned the praise it heaped upon him. The writer regarded the West as spiritually deteriorated and criticized Western democracy. He even declined dinner with American President Ronald Reagan.
So the president invited him. There was this big reception, and Solzhenitsyn said, "I'm sorry, Mr. President, but I don't have the time for this. But if you want my advice on something, I would be glad to come and see you."
When the Soviet Union collapsed, Solzhenitsyn returned to Russia as a hero, a prophet of the post-Soviet era. But the country he came back to was unknown to him.
Ironically enough, this street, which used to be called Большая Коммунистическая or Great Communism Street, now bears the name of Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a staunch critic of Soviet rule. But that's quite in line with modern Russia, where streets and cities are being stripped of their Soviet titles in favor of those who are considered to be heroes in new Russia.
Solzhenitsyn won a state medal for his achievements, but he was never really in step in what he described as an increasingly Western and materialistic new Russia.
We should support and trust ordinary people, but not the small group of status seekers whose only aim is to get to power.
Solzhenitsyn shunned the limelight and spent his last days among the privacy of his family, just as he wished. He insisted that no monuments or museums be dedicated to him, saying his books are his treasury, and in them his legacy will live on. Olga Masalkova, RT, Moscow.